I'm honored to address the Human Rights Council to present my final report on the situation of human rights in the Islamic Republic of Iran. While some engagement was noted, I regret that despite consistent requests throughout my mandate, I was never granted access to the country. I remain very concerned at the ongoing executions and spike in death penalty sentences observed during the reporting period. At least 834 people were executed in 2023, a 43% increase compared to 2022. Of the reported executions in 2023, 471 executions, almost 56.5%, were for drug-related charges. As of December 31st, 2023, since the commencement of the nationwide protests in September 2022, the Iranian authorities have regrettably executed 9 men for their involvement in the protests. Despite serious concerns expressed by my mandate and by the international community, children continue to be executed in Iran, with at least 1 reported execution in 2023. One of the highest rates of women executions continue to be recorded in the country, with at least 22 women executed in 2023. I'm extremely concerned at the number of death sentences following proceedings that violated due process and the right to a fair trial, as provided in Article 14 of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, to which the Islamic Republic of Iran is a party. There were also allegations of torture and ill treatment in detention, and defendants were frequently denied access to a lawyer, and lawyers were not allowed to defend their clients. All executions in Iran constitute arbitrary deprivation of life and violate the right to life guaranteed by Article 6 of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. The situation of ethnic and religious minorities remains of deep concern, especially as the numbers of those executed from ethnic and religious minorities remain disproportionately high, particularly for drug or security-related crimes. The Baloch and the Kurdish minorities have been particular targets of arbitrary deprivation of the right to life at the hands of state authorities, in particular through executions and extrajudicial killings of cross-border couriers, namely Kurdish Kolbars and Balochi Sukhbars. I'm extremely distressed and shocked at the continuing persistent persecution, arbitrary arrests, and harassment of members of the Baha'i community, as well as the targeting and persecution of other non-recognized religious minorities, in particular the Christian converts and the Sufis, including those of the Gonabadi order. I remain seriously concerned at the harassment, intimidation, targeting, arrests, and imprisonment of human rights defenders, lawyers, journalists, and trade unionists. I have received reports that the imprisoned prominent human rights defender, Nargis Mohammadi, suffers from severe health issues, including serious heart and lung conditions, placing her health at great risk. Labor rights activists and journalists reporting on industrial relations, work and labor conditions have been imprisoned for exercising their freedom of expression and peaceful assembly. As I have reported, there were at least 1,266 trade union protests, 4 instances of protest suppression, and 32 trade union strikes took place during 2023. Mr. President, it is extremely distressing and tragic to report that the state authorities have, with complete impunity, unlawfully killed at least 48 women and 68 children, and injured, violated, and brutalized a very large number of women and girls during the Women Life Freedom Movement, with extremely concerning reports that rape, torture, and other forms of sexual violence were weaponized in order to inflict punishment on these peaceful protesters. We recently celebrated International Women's Day. However, women and girls in the Islamic Republic of Iran face continuing repression, discrimination, and the authorities have increasingly used further brutal and repressive policing methods on girls and women, defying the compulsory hijab laws. Iranian authorities have maintained a system of gender apartheid and insisted on draconian laws, administrative policies, and practices that increasingly violate the human rights and human dignity of Iranian girls and women. Over 1 million SMS messages were sent to women, threatening that if they were found traveling unveiled, their vehicles would be confiscated, and thousands of these threatening orders were implemented. Authorities have also forcibly closed down hundreds of businesses for not enforcing compulsory veiling, and countless women have been denied access to education, public transport, and banking services as a result. The morality police have been reportedly redeployed, and a draft legislation, namely the bill to support the family by promoting the culture of chastity and hijab, has been presented by Parliament to the Guardian Council. The bill amplifies gender segregation and imposes draconian measures for improper veiling, including restricting socio-economic rights and using flogging as a form of punishment. I once again appeal to the government to repeal the compulsory hijab legislation, to eliminate in law and in practice all forms of persecution, discrimination, and violence against women and girls. Take necessary steps to advance their equal participation in public life. Ensure that the rights of women, including those of human rights defenders, are protected. I also encourage the government to ratify and fully implement the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination against Women. Mr. President, in this report, I reflected and I assessed the overall human rights situation and the implementation of my recommendations provided to the Iranian authorities during my 6-year tenure. I noted the positive steps and measures undertaken to improve the human rights situation, including the amendment of the drug trafficking law in November 2017, which up until 2020 effectively resulted in a significant decline in executions related to drug-related offenses. As regards the rights of girls and women, I recognize the substantial progress in achieving equal access to education and progressive increase in female literacy, as well as the 2019 amendment to the nationality law that provides Iranian women married to non-Iranian men the right to apply for Iranian nationality for their children who are under 18 years of age. However, in my report, I provide a detailed account of how these positive initiatives and gains have been overturned, rendered ineffectual, or resulted in producing negative consequences through the continuation of the overarching environment of large-scale and systematic human rights violations. In addition, unfortunately, none of my recommendations have been implemented by the authorities. I regret to note serious continuing concerns, including the large-scale arbitrary deprivation of life through the ongoing executions and the use of unlawful lethal force used against individuals, including those protesting for fundamental rights, violations of the right to fair trial, systemic and systematic discrimination and attacks on minorities and women and girls. Impunity and the absence of accountability for serious human rights violations remain a significant, deeply tragic, and recurrent feature of the constitutional, legal framework and political landscape of the Islamic Republic of Iran. In addition to holding perpetrators of serious crimes during the recent Women Life Freedom movement accountable, I urge the international community to establish accountability mechanisms with respect to long-standing emblematic events that have been met with persistent impunity. These include the enforced disappearances and summary and arbitrary executions which took place in 1981 and 1988 and the protests of November 2019. Mr. President, this mandate has been the platform for highlighting and reporting serious human rights violations and abuses conducted by governmental authorities. I remain hopeful that the mandate would continue to be the voice of millions of Iranians who are targeted, victimized, and abused, and whose fundamental rights are violated persistently and with impunity. As I end my 6 years mandate, I would like to sincerely thank the Iranian people for their bravery, courage, resilience, as well as for their support and positive engagement with my mandate. I thank you, Mr. President.